Hello, everybody, and I want to start this show by saying Malates, 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 Malates. And there's our formalities out the way. And the person responsible for me saying this is with us today. It's from his book Contemplating Comedy. And as we shall find out, this is not just an ordinary chess grandmaster who does chess. He's written books about comedy, chess. Any others, John?
Well, chess psychology and chess aesthetics, I suppose,
Yeah,
is my chess area.
yeah. And he's not doing chess for a living. I think that we might best describe your current profession as cricket arbitrage, which is.
Well,
Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
before I go into what I do for a living and other such technical matters, greetings, Andy, and greetings, Nigel.
Hello.
Good to see you again after all these years. Haven't seen you in the real world for ages. I'm obviously aware of you on social media for some time. Obviously, I should also add that the maladies, now we've got the formalities out the way, is not my line, but it's the line of Tim Vine, which I quote in my book, Contemplating Comedy. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so this book, as I understand it, is basically a reflection on comedy and why certain things are funny. You sort of do a breakdown of comedy into why things are funny and why things are funnier to some people rather than others. I noticed you quoted one of my lines from Facebook, but you didn't find it the funniest out of the ones that you quoted.
You'll never forgive me.
Yeah, I was somewhat disappointed about that because I thought it was really entertaining gallows humour. When we were at the height of the epidemic, and they just come out with a vaccine, and I said for people who don't know the genre, this is where the poorly tested vaccine sparks the zombie apocalypse. I still find that funny.
Yeah, it was a good line, which is why it made it into the book. But
Right,
We're on this show. We're on this show time after time.
it was beaten by the competition.
hold your book up. Hold your book up, John, so people will know.
That's
Right.
that's contemplating comedy. Note the nice Ukrainian blue and yellow colours. That was an accident. Obviously,
Okay.
came out before the crisis in Ukraine, but there we go. Yeah, it's a book partly about comedy. I mean, it's got a lot of funny lines in it. A few of them are my own, but mainly other people's. And it's also about other things, as perhaps you've looked at it and know. It's got chapters on certain aspects of life, like relationships and gambling and religion, or the existence of God is the issue. So it's not just about comedy. About half the book is specifically about different types of humor, and half the book is about sort of other things that I've learnt along the way. But it was my lockdown project when cricket stopped worldwide for several months, and I had to do something with my time, and I'd moved on from chess, so that's what I did.
Yeah. How did you cope with the COVID era? I mean, my take is basically, older chess players just, it didn't make much difference to them. Mate, absolutely no difference to me. Well, I missed a bit of table tennis and stuff. My son was very upset during, especially during the latter phases of it. But for me personally, then it was, oh well, we're in lockdown, so what, never go out.
Yeah, that's Buffy the dog in the background there, by the way.
Having a stretch.
She's kind of a bit amused by the fact the door is shut, it's normally open, and she's kind of thinking
Right.
about her lack of freedom to go downstairs, which yeah, it was lockdown in a nutshell, the lack of freedom to go out really for several weeks or months. I don't know, it didn't affect me that much in that I spend a lot of time in my office here where you see me now anyway. And obviously, the main effect on me was that I didn't have any cricket to work on, so I wrote a book. which was probably a good thing. Gave me a break from my normal lifestyle, gave me time to reflect. I mean, I think for a lot of people, it was probably very psychologically healthy to have a change in their routine forced upon them for some time. Obviously, for a minority of people, it caused mental health issues. I don't know. Overall, it was obviously a bad thing for the world and the economy, and for a lot of people that died and got ill and remain ill with long-term effects. So obviously, it's a tragedy for the world. Personally, it was okay for me. I mean, I adapted easily enough to what was forced upon me, and I mean, even still, I think I'm hesitant to go to a chess event now and play a tournament. I haven't yet had COVID, I don't think, so I'd almost certainly get it if I played in a chess tournament, I think.
Are you up to date with all your vaccines and everything?
Oh yeah. I haven't had a fourth booster jab, the second booster jab, the fourth jab in all. And I've had my 2 jabs and my booster, several months ago. I will take the next booster when it's offered to me, and it should be offered to me fairly soon. But yeah, I mean, I'm not so. I mean, I'm anticipating catching it at some point very soon, because my wife and my stepdaughter both work in schools, and they're in the house every day, having been, in contact with dozens of pupils and children, young children. So it's only a matter of time before I get it, I think, but hasn't happened yet, I don't think.
Yeah.
Have you guys, neither of you have had it?
I don't know, possibly. I mean, I had my jabs. I was AstraZeneca, Moderna, personally. And I think I might have had it. I had something that was like a cold. My son had it as well. I didn't do a test. There was like a cough for a day or something. I got over it faster than he did, and it might have been COVID. There's a good chance now if you get some, something a bit like that. I'm not terribly worried now, because normally I'm in pretty robust health, it seems. So I'm just carrying on as normal.
I have actually had it.
Okay.
Omicron or whatever offshoot was going around at the time. I don't think you can avoid it. I mean, I'm working in schools day after day.
Yeah.
Kids and teachers, and
Omicron.
The environment is just absolutely right for catching COVID.
1 in 15, I think, or 1 in 20 at best at the moment. So
anyway, the point is that I had a sore throat, which was very odd for me, and my nose started running, which was almost unheard of. I never, ever in my entire life have had my nose running, whether I had cold, flu, or whatever. And it really started streaming out. And then I had a sore throat, and after that, no cough, no headache. It was just like a head cold. And then it passed. And I took a test, obviously, and it was positive. And by the time a week had gone by, it had gone.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
You also did a show while you had COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I was waking up.
Our first or second show was done while you were in the midst of COVID.
Yeah,
no,
I wouldn't recommend it, but I was waking up in the middle of the night.
We had our schedule,
Another thing, my throat was parched. It was like I hadn't drunk for a week or something, and I was waking up with a really horrible throat, dry as a bone. But apart from that, it wasn't serious. I wouldn't call it serious if you're in good health.
Yeah, I think you just, genetically, or if you've got pre-existing health conditions, you just get really unlucky. A lot of people breeze through it, but a few people are extremely vulnerable.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, they don't know in advance whether or not they will be vulnerable. Now, I had a genetic test fairly recently, and one of the useful things on that was it said I had medium susceptibility to severe COVID, right? And as the medium seemed to breeze through it more or less, then I've used that as something that gives me confidence to to have people breathe on me or whatever.
You confirm that you're human then by this test, do you not?
More or less, there are a few dodgy things there, but essentially humanoidish.
Right.
We've got a game lined up here, Nigel.
Yeah, we got several games lined up.
Go through.
Yeah, let me share the screen here. Hopefully, I'll share the right one this time. Okay, we have a quite well-known game, and I found out there's a little bit of controversy in this, which John may want to go into. I actually really liked this game, and one of the reasons is that it's a line that I give to my students, because I'm very big on the French defence, right? Because I think it's like the one of the most economical defences you can learn against 1e4, and the line that John plays in this game is not. It's not really high fashion, is it? Shall I just take them through the first few moves? So e4, e6, d4, d5, knight d2, c5, ed, queen takes, knight gf3, cd. So this is all pretty well-known theory. And here, normally white castles in this position, but queen e2 is a sideline which intends to castle queenside. So this is the normal line. They usually go castles here, with ideas of knight e4, and then black plays this, and white plays knight b3, and black does this, and white does knight b takes d4, and you get this type of pawn structure where black has got 4 pawns on the king side, which lends his king pretty good protection, and you have an open d and c files. You know, so it's a bit like the Rubinstein structure as well, where you play c5. Very, very solid line for black, and probably a major argument against 3 knight d2.
I guess you've had this a lot, John.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's a long time since I played serious chess, but this was a line I was known for playing as black. And I think French defense players always feel a bit, you know, their heart sinks slightly when 3 knight d2 occurs rather than 3 knight c3. Mainly they enjoy playing the winnower, and there is no particularly exciting line for black against the Tarrasch, which is strong for black anyway. I mean, there are various ways of trying to equalize, but there's nothing particularly exciting or interesting. And this is a fairly dull line essentially, where black temporarily goes a pawn ahead, but white gets a lead in development. White wins his pawn back, and black tries to equalize with his solid center. It's pretty dull.
Didn't you win one really good game in this line? It was like against somebody like Michael Hennigan, where you advanced all your kingside pawns, and you got pawns on h4 and g5, and your king was behind your e pawn on e6, and you squeezed your opponent to death.
Possibly, I can't actually remember that one.
Horrible fashion.
I've played this line so many times. I can't remember very many games. I mean, even this one, which is perhaps the best known game in this line by me. You know, it's so long since I've looked at it that this felt fresh to me looking at it again recently in preparation for this show.
You play a6 here or bishop d7?
I generally go a6.
A6, yeah.
Yeah, I've given bishop e7, which is Eingorn's recommendation that Giri has also played. So
okay.
Yeah, bishop e7 is a pretty solid move there for black.
How much were you influenced by John Watson's books on the French? Because I remember he also recommended this line in one of his earlier Play the French volumes.
I was aware of his book. I think I had it. I wouldn't say I was particularly influenced by it. I did my own analysis on this and made some fairly detailed notes because I had the line so many times that, yeah, I mean, there are some sharp lines that white can try, where he tries rook e1 and knight f5 ideas, and there's some dynamic stuff, and obviously you have to be prepared for especially as black, against that kind of stuff. Bishop e7, this Eingorn idea, I haven't really looked at, to be honest, Nigel, but it looks interesting. So you're not worried about knight b5s?
Yeah, you just go queen c6.
Right, okay. Yeah, that looks very playable. If you can do without a6, I suppose it's quite nice. Yeah, okay. Maybe b3.
I sense that somebody may be tempted to come back to chess after this discussion.
Try out Slimegorn's idea. Yeah. Well,
he put it in a rock solid opening repertoire for black, which has got, like, pride of place on my bookshelves. I I like dust it off every now and then.
strong technical player. Yeah, Eingorn.
Yeah.
Well, very good player. Yeah.
The book was actually really good. It was much better than a lot of repertoire books because he'd actually used the lines. It wasn't something like, oh, I'm going to make a repertoire book today. What am I going to put in it? Oh, I'll put that in it. Right, let's look at some computer notes, whatever, database. Get the engine chugging away on it. And there you go, book. He'd actually looked at the lines, and I think he'd used a chess set.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's quite impressive these days.
So unique.
So when was this game played?
Um,
Do you recall?
Good question. It was in round 8 of the Staunton Memorial 2005. So I'd kind of semi-retired by then, and this was a kind of comeback event for me. So yeah, I wasn't playing a lot of chess before I sort of played a couple of these Staunton Memorial tournaments, and they went pretty well for me, actually. And then suddenly a few stronger players turned up the next year, like Jan Timman and others, and I got hammered and had a bad result. But the first two against the English opponents went pretty well. I joint won one of them with John Spielman and beat a few people. I think I had a 4.5 out of 5 finish, and
Wow.
In an all-play-all, and came first equal with Spess, which was very nice, especially since I wasn't playing much at that point. And
Well, let's carry on with this game then. So what happened next?
Queen E2, the castle's queenside plan, which tries to do something interesting, but it may not be awfully good.
yeah, am I taking control of the board here? I'm
Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
C6.
well, until I kick you off the study and mute you.
That's
We always like to be hospitable to our guests.
It's the sort of treatment we expect from Nigel. Yeah, well, I mean, these kind of slightly offbeat lines where white doesn't win back the pawn immediately are perfectly playable for white. He almost certainly will get the
Okay. So we've got bishop e7. I hope everyone's connectivity
this way. I mean,
yeah.
bishop d2's, yeah, it's not a particularly aggressive move. It's kind of fairly slow, but okay. I don't know. There might be ways black can try and hold this pawn. Maybe a quick a6, b5, and looking to play e5 quickly was black. But I tend to be of the philosophy that you should give back the pawn and just be happy with equality as black in general. But I haven't computer analyzed this game in great detail, so it is possible black has better ways to play. That I didn't play particularly ambitiously. I was just happy to complete my development and not try and hang on to the pawn. Okay, so let's move through. I played a6, which is looking to play b5. He played the aggressive castle's queenside, which is the whole idea of what he's trying to do, to bring the rook to the d file quickly and his other rook to e1. I complete my development. Yeah, I mean, if king b1 is the best move for white, then it's not going to be a great position for white. I mean, black must be okay, because the only problem black really has in this line is that he's slightly behind in development, and if he's given time just to complete his development, then black, in theoretical terms, is fine, because he's got the center and he's got a pawn majority in the center, and once he's fully developed, there are no problems. That said, it's hard to actually be better. It's just equality. So b5 seems sensible, because you're kind of pushing white's pieces in front of that rook on d1 so that it's not so directly opposed to the black queen on d6, and it makes it even harder for white to get his pawn back. Castles, rook e1. Okay, now white's got to do something, and he came up with g4, which is, yeah. I mean, at this point in time in 2005, David Howell wasn't quite the player he is now. I mean, now he's, what, 2,700 or something, and well, I don't know, I haven't looked at his rating recently, but he has been around that. He's one of England's leading players. At this point in time, I think he was about 2,550-ish, 2,500 plus. A very promising junior, probably the best we had. And but he wasn't quite as strong as he is now. And I don't believe the way he's playing this is particularly convincing. Black has a number of ways to play. And okay, I played solidly with g6. I don't know. I mean, I didn't really look at knight takes g4. It's possible, I guess. I just didn't want to get.
Well, you report on that. Why should you be greedy?
Yeah, I thought the position's pretty reasonable, just playing solidly. So I played solidly without too much thought. And he went on. It's a good square for the knight there. It should be all right. It should be solid, this position as black.
Yeah.
He still hasn't won his pawn back. So I think bishop e4 is looking to try and win this pawn back on d4 at some point soon. I'm just mobilizing my rooks. He's activating his rook on d1 by retreating his bishop. And here, I suppose, well, I could consider e5, but he's got moves like c3. He's got possibly taking on c6 and taking on e5. I didn't really want to get involved. I just thought, okay, he can have his pawn back. And I thought my position was pretty solid. So he took the pawn back. Some pieces got swapped off. And we've got a position where white's kind of overcommitted on the king side slightly. I've got a good square on f5, a possible square on f4, which are a bit weak for white because he's got no pawn control on f5 or f4 or indeed f3. However, it's difficult for black as well. I've got no, other than pushing my queenside pawns, there's not a lot I can do other than, yeah, just mobilizing my rooks, possibly pushing these queenside pawns. The white position is still pretty solid. So it's just positional play, this. I think the position's dynamically probably about equal. Maybe black is slightly better. Sorry, Marshall, yes.
I find it quite interesting, and I don't know if the viewers will as well, the way that you're sort of very objective at looking at a position. And I remember it because we worked together a bit in the 1980s. And, you know, it always struck me that you're very rational about chess, right? And I can't say that I was particularly. You know, you're very objective, right? That's, you know, that's something that occurred to me. And your choices in the opening were also like incredibly sensible. You know, the Nims engine of the French are 1d4 with white, you know, and you basically honed these the openings you had. You weren't, you know, sort of chopping and changing all the time like some of us, sadly.
Yeah, I think it all went wrong when I took up the Clarendon court.
It might have been my influence, that, you know, not the actual opening, you know, but the sort of the thinking behind it.
I don't know. You probably showed me the Leningrad Dutch or something, and yeah, it's kind of an offshoot of that.
I did play. I was toying with the Leningrad Dutch around that time. Actually, I tried it in the first game. It didn't go swimmingly, I have to say. But I also used your you know, your use of the Blumenfeld rule, right? I tried using that. You know, which is when before you make a move, you try and do like a blunder check or whatever. Right, this may have worked for you, but for me it was like horrible. And I was sort of thinking all the time about using this rule, these set of rules. There was a point at which FIDE stopped us writing down the move first. Right, now I've since adapted the Blumenfeld rule because I think it might work for some people. You trace the move on your leg. This is my extension of the Blumenfeld rule, right? But I played this game in the Leningrad Dutch where I was trying to implement the Blumenfeld rule or some modification of it. It was horrible. I think I drew, but it was against some much lower rated player, and I just it didn't work for me for whatever
You guys, both of you are well known around the world, I think, as chess teachers, and you've both got an enormous amount of commentary work and web work behind you, and your trainers well known as official trainers as well. I also did a lot of training many years ago. I haven't from the last 2 decades, but 30 years ago or so, and up to about 20 years ago, I did quite a lot of chess teaching. And my way of teaching this Blumenfeld rule, as it were, was something which I called expected line of play. I think before you make a move, especially in a slow play game, but even in a quick play and blitz game, if you're able to, you should have an expected line of play. You shouldn't just make a move without anticipating something that's going to come down on the board next. And I think if you've always got what I call this expected line of play, you suddenly become a much stronger player than if you don't have an expected line of play. So I think it's important not to drift and just make moves without having an expectation of what's happening or what's about to happen next. And of course, that's a kind of version of the Blumenfeld rule where you write down your move before playing it and try to guess what he's going to reply with. But I think any strong player has got to be you don't become strong without expecting a series of moves, or at least one move, in response to anything that you do.
I'm not sure I've ever thought about it like that. Maybe this is what I've been missing.
Nigel Davies, 2800, here we come.
Yeah, well, the over 50 World Championship for a start.
And all because he knew what to do next.
It's more sort of, oh well, that I'll do that.
I think another thing I thought about was the way that teaching and communicating about chess don't really go with playing chess. I mean, I think it's a mismatch, a mindset issue, in that I think when you're teaching or communicating about chess as we are now, today here, and when you're teaching somebody one-on-one, you're trying to be helpful, you're trying to communicate your thinking and trying to help the other person play better chess. And when you're playing, you're trying to be very unhelpful. You're trying to make things as difficult as possible for your opponent. What's good for him is bad for you, and what's bad for him is good for you. And I think essentially the mindset of a strong player should be that of a complete bastard. You just want to be really unpleasant to your opponent in every permissible way, and you just want to grind him into the dust and not be very nice at all.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. You several ex-members of your Facebook profile.
It sort of sums up my Facebook strategy as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. This mental mindset of the total bastard mindset is, I think, ideal for playing chess, and the friendly, cooperative, communicative person is ideal for the teaching mindset, and the two don't really go well together. I mean, you can switch in and out of one and the other. You can teach all week and then play chess on the weekend. They're not natural bedfellows, and I think the people that really reach their ultimate level at chess don't spend a lot of their time teaching. So I think that is something that you do, maybe for money, maybe because it's part of your personality, maybe you're not a complete bastard, contrary to common opinion. And you kind of, I mean, I wasn't naturally a complete bastard. I could be a bit of a bastard, but I'm not really that way inclined. And I don't think I was an all-out player in that sense. I was more of a communicator and a teacher and a writer. So I probably never reached anywhere near my potential had I worked flat out on being a player. And I think that's probably very true of both of you.
That's certainly true of me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you obviously...
I teach because I actually enjoy it.
Yeah, you obviously had the ability to be a fairly strong grandmaster, Andy, and I think teaching a lot. And
it's more me than playing chess, actually.
Yeah, I completely understand that. It is. You're a very communicative person, and you've got a good sense of humor. Both of you have a good sense of humor, and you like the flow of ideas. And yeah, it's difficult to be an all-out player. I mean, I don't think many people have that mentality.
Well, one thing that I would say happened to me was when I was playing, probably up to the mid 1990s. Then I was pretty well focused on playing, and but after that, when I started teaching people, and probably especially when I started teaching my son, it's the doing a lot of this actually changed me. That you do have to start to think about what somebody else is thinking, and especially if they're related to you and you're taking them to tournaments or whatever. So I do think it can change. I would say the teaching as sort of now I'm much less inclined to play. At one time, then I couldn't imagine life without it. Now I can sort of take it or leave it. And in some ways playing would actually be a bit of a chore. Because and I'd probably play differently. I would be more technical and more distant. I think when you're just being a player, you're so emotionally entangled with the games themselves that you can't really separate your personality from the desire to win and to win tournaments. You're just like in it, and that is that would be like total bastard guy. It's probably the difference between like being a warrior and a farmer. So if you're a warrior and you capture this land, you think, oh, what am I going to do with it? Oh, I suppose I'll rear cattle. Then after a while, you forget to use these swordsmanship techniques or whatever, and you just get used to farming.
Okay,
we better get on with this game.
I was about to say,
this is going to be a long show.
That was completely opposite.
Lucky we've only got 2 games.
We go into the history of agrarian policy and the development of farming. Okay, so yeah, this position. Let's get back to it. I think Black played Rook D5, which is. Yeah, it's all very solid. It basically this game. I don't think it's a particularly remarkable game for the first. I mean, it's a reasonable. Both sides played reasonably without doing anything ridiculous, but the first 30 moves are not that special. It's the finish of the game that makes this a little bit special and stands out. It's probably the best finish I've ever had to a game actually in my career. So. Let's get through it and find the finish. Well, it's trying to sort of organise a bit of an attack on the king side. There isn't really one there objectively in the position that should be scary for black, but it's obviously he's got a knight and a rook and a queen and the other rook potentially. But black's position is fundamentally solid. He should be all right. So. Yeah, I can't really explain that move. It's just perhaps a waiting move.
7.
Consolidating.
Yeah.
Triple major pieces on the D file.
Yeah, well, that's called Alekine's gun, I think, isn't it? When you have triple pieces.
Yeah.
Well, he's looking to play rook takes h5 and knight f6 check. So
Stop.
Bishop G7 kind of undermines that.
What a spoil sport.
Yeah. It's the joy of chess, isn't it? Spoiling the
bastard.
opponent's ideas.
Stopping rook takes h5.
Wasn't it?
He only wanted a bit of fun.
Yeah, the complete bastard mentality again in action there. Stopping your opponent one idea at a time. I think it was
We have
Kasparov.
to put up a YouTube restricted slot on this video, I think.
Too much bad language.
I have them. I have them all down as not being suitable for children, but not being a mature audience. It's not. There's no X content on it. Hopefully.
Not yet, but here we go.
Not yet.
Okay.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Rook G1 is clearly an X-rated move. He's looking to do nasty things on the G file. So I try and swap queens before he does that. He tries to keep them on. I think at about maybe 2 or 3 moves ago, I offered a draw, which was turned down. So I wasn't being particularly ambitious. He is a slightly stronger player than me, or was at that time. Now he's a much stronger player than me. I don't account for the fact I haven't played for years and years. But at that point, I was happy with the draw at about this stage of the game. But I shouldn't be really. Looking at it, I think black is slightly better here. A preemptive king run. Okay, so he's attacking my rook. My rook moves. He's bringing his other rook into the game. He's got ambition here. He's trying to double rooks on the h file and hack on h5. There he goes.
Your queen went a strange manoeuvre there.
Right. So that was we had rook g4, queen a7, rook gh4, queen b7. You want those queens off, don't you?
He wants those queens off.
And he doesn't. So in we come down to the back rank. It's getting a little bit critical now. White is threatening the big hack on h5 with a pretty dangerous attack. And black is threatening counterplay with rook d1, sacking the exchange and coming through on the back rank. And he goes for it. He goes in. And at this point in time, I would have been calculating, because that was the sort of thing I did. I'm always.
Now, David Howe has always been known for his time trouble exploits.
Yeah.
Even then, could you recall whether he was in time trouble or not?
There was definitely, we were both in time trouble.
He seemed to enjoy it, revel in it,
Yeah.
He's incredibly good at blitz, of course, which helps.
I mean, before this game, this was in 2005, when he was younger, he was one of my pupils. And he came to my house or my flat in Clarendon Court on multiple occasions with his dad and had 2-3 hour lessons with me. When he was like 10, 11, 12. He was already very strong at that point, like a 200 plus player, 200 plus player at that sort of age. And I did try to sort of get him out of time trouble as a teacher, but he kind of persisted with it. I think we all got on very well at that stage. And this game, I'll describe the incident a little later. It happens fairly soon, actually. We kind of, our relationship broke down a bit. I'll explain why shortly. It's perhaps interesting to people watching. Okay, so white has played his sacrifice and is trying to come through on h7, after which he'll have ideas like g6. He's also got the threat of rook f3 potentially. Trying to hit f7 after what I do, which is I'm trying to counter now by coming in here.
Here he goes. Levitt on the march.
He's got to take that. I take back. I'm obviously coming through on c1 here.
Ouch.
The problem for me is that although I win a piece, his king seems relatively safe, and f7 is a big target, which is what he's after here. And the problem is that if I play f5, he takes en passant, hits that bishop, which has got nowhere to go. And if it goes to h8, he's got queen takes h7, hitting the bishop and threatening all sorts. So it's a pretty devastating.
Queen h6 check, defending
yeah.
it on c1.
It's white has got a devastating attack, and black has got to break through first here. And this would be all calculation now. Absolutely clear I'm taking that. But not so clear that I've got a really good follow-up. Okay, so this is move 38. And this is the part of the game that's been seen in various magazines and things. It's obviously a very nice finish now.
Super move coming up.
Yeah, it's kind of a forced move. There's no real choice. As I say, f5, e takes f6 en passant, bishop h8, queen h takes h7 is very nasty, and there is no real way of defending as black. So I've got to attack, and there's only one way to attack. There's no choice. I've got to take on a3 and start checking with my queen. Yeah. So at about this point, I took on a3, obviously. He took back. I played queen a1 check. And at this point,
with the pawn because of queen b1 mate. I should.
Yes, correct.
For the readers.
So b takes a3, queen b1 is checkmate, as Nigel.
Already, because the bishop covers the c3 square.
Yeah, quite a pretty little mate there. Yeah. So going back to rook a1 check, king 8. Oops, sorry. I'm pressing the wrong button. So rook a1 check, king b3.
It often happens on this show.
Right, he has to take because you could even take his rook otherwise.
Yeah, that would put an end to all his fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
He's having fun in this position.
So at this point, I think I said the words, "We've reached the time control," because that was my move 40. The arbiter was Eric Schiller, a well-known arbiter at the time. Had a very sad end to his life with very poor health in the last few years before he died. But at that time, he was in reasonably good health and attended lots of events internationally as an arbiter. Anyway, he was the arbiter, a very nice guy, Eric Schiller. And he was standing right by the board. And I said something like, as I say, that's the time control. Because I think the clocks, get pushed back an hour or whatever it was. I can't remember the exact details now, but that's all I said. And David sort of had a bit of a think here and then tried to accept a draw, which he claimed I'd offered, which I hadn't. All I'd said was, that's the time control. Yeah, he may have had his hands over his ears and not heard me properly in his defense, but so when he tried to stop the clocks and claim the draw at this point, I'd already calculated it to a forced win, so I knew I was winning, and I thought he might be resigning. So I kind of was about to shake hands, but then I realized that he wasn't resigning. He was thinking it was a draw. And I said, well, I haven't offered a draw. And he kind of accepted it and moved on and had another think and played a move. And that should have been that. But after the game, he continued to maintain that I'd offered a draw. And the arbiter, Eric Schiller, told him exactly what I'd said. And he continued not to accept it and continued to resent the fact that he thought he'd been robbed of a draw. And I was just a bit shocked by this behavior because, as I said, he'd been my pupil. We'd always got on very well. And I was kind of a bit alarmed when I heard him talking to other people after that game saying that I'd offered a draw. And I'd told him I hadn't offered a draw, which should have been good enough for him, given he knew me very well on its own. But obviously it wasn't. But the arbiter telling him as well. And I found it pretty poor behavior, to be honest. And I kind of talked to his dad because I said I was writing this game up for a magazine, and I was hoping he would apologize for saying that I'd cheated, which is more or less what he did. And he didn't apologize, David. His dad apologized, but David wouldn't apologize himself. And so I wrote the article and described it. I think it was for Chess Monthly. And after that, David's basically not spoken to me since, and I've hardly spoken to him. We've kind of nodded at each other at some chess event years ago, so we're kind of partly over it, but relations certainly soured, let's put it that way, as a result of that incident, which is rather sad, really.
I think weird things can happen to people when you're involved in, especially a very dramatic game, and strange things happen to people. He might have really believed that you offered a draw, and it might have been like sort of partial wishful thinking or something. But I've known that people can like hallucinate, do all sorts of things when they're under massive stress, so it could be something like that.
Yeah, you're right. It's got to be something like that. There's no other explanation, but still, I mean,
Yeah.
it was a very upsetting chain of events, and that led to that breakdown of relations. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know David that well since this game. He'd always struck me as a pleasant young lad, quite aggressive as a chess player, but you need to be. But perfectly okay. His dad was lovely. His sister and his mum were lovely. It was a nice family, and he was a nice young man most of the time. But yeah, he had an aggressive side. I think there was an incident in Ireland, wasn't there, at a prize giving where
We won't mention that.
he decked somebody. He was upset he hadn't won a prize.
So we're not going to go there.
Yeah, he had an aggressive side to him. But okay, let's not go into libel. Yeah. Okay. I liked David before this game, and I was upset with the way he behaved, and he must have genuinely believed what he thought he heard, because otherwise there's no basis for the way he behaved.
That's probably it could be like some sort of just wishful thinking combined with extreme stress and whatever that can it can do funny things to people. Extreme stress.
Let's see the finish. Let's see the finish.
Yeah.
Let's see the finish.
That is extremely stressful for White.
Okay, so
So White is positively howling at this stage.
oh, very good, Dave. Nigel. You prepared that one for the show.
I did.
Okay, so
weeks to think that one up.
I think it's very strategically. It's very clear that Black is going to give lots of checks with his queen, and the White king is trying to run away, and that White has a nasty attack of his own on f7 for Black to deal with, which can't really be defended against. So I've got to break through with the queen, and the question is, can I do more than perpetual check? So king b4. If king b3, queen a4 was mate, king b4 means that after queen a4 check, he's got the c5 square. So that was kind of forced. Now I bring my bishop in. It would be a mistake just to use the queen with queen c4, because I think he can go, well, king d6 against that. So I think it's better to bring the bishop in immediately. And he still goes king d6. If king c6, it just helps me improve my queen with queen c4 check. So king d6 is the best try. I go queen b4. And he's now found that he has to go to c6 anyway. So we kind of... If he goes to d7...
Go to e7 and then to c5.
Yeah, it'll come to the same thing, won't it, that way. So c6, c5 check. So he's got to go to d7. Well, he can go to b7 as well, but it probably comes to the same thing. I go queen b6 check. So he went to d7 and I went queen a7 check. So he went to d6. He's just trying to draw, essentially, and the question is, have I got more than a draw? And the answer is yes. Because I've played a very nice move here, bringing the king into the attack.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Which...
unusual finisher.
That was probably what he missed when he thought you'd offered a draw.
Well, maybe. If we go back here then to, I mean, I can't remember exactly at what point I saw that finish. I'd certainly seen it by the time I went rook takes a3 check. I'd actually seen king e8, which I think was one of the best finishes I've had, and I was proud of myself because I'd seen that move, and I'd had plenty of time to calculate because we'd just reached the time control on move 40. So sorry, maybe when I played rook takes a3 check, I knew I had at least perpetual check. And after move 40, I had a long think while he was thinking about my so-called draw offer. And at this point, I calculated it to the finish, seeing king e8. I think that's exactly when I saw it, around now, on move 40. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's a lovely end to a game. As I said, possibly the best finish of my career. A little bit spectacular and a little bit deep, and a nice way to end a game.
Very, very good. Should we do the next game?
Yeah, let's do the next game.
Yeah.
What is the next game?
This is and Andrew is going to go through it and explain where you offered a draw and then pretended it hadn't happened.
I wish you had offered a draw, actually.
Right.
Okay, well, this is a game which I played with Black against Jonathan. It took place in Glasgow, of all places. I mean, we could have played in Clarendon Court or on the beachfront at Brighton. But in the end, we played in the Glasgow Open Tournament. I think you won that tournament, didn't you, John?
I think this game helped me do that, Andrew. It was just towards the end of the tournament, wasn't it? And we were both doing quite well.
Well, it was on the Sunday morning. I remember it well.
So this is a critical game of the event.
Yeah, one of them anyway. The point is that I think you talk about your game against David Howe, but I think this is an amazingly good game because you actually not only beat me in a tremendous way, you improved on a game Kasparov versus Syra, which had actually been played just the very same year. Was this in 1990 or 1991? I can't remember.
I'm sorry. I think it's
something around that. It was around that time, definitely, because the only way I remember it is I'd written a book on the King's Indian at that time called Play the King's Indian, where against the same-ish variation, and John is white, I'd recommended the old Queen Sacrifice of David Bronstein, where Black plays knight h5, Queen d2, Queen comes out to h4, White goes g3, and now Black rather enterprisingly sacrifices his Queen. Like this. Had you studied this in advance, Jonathan? Had you prepared this at any point in your career? It looks as though you did.
I had, yes. I'd made some notes on this variation, and I thought White had good chances.
Well, it's interesting that Syra decided to try this variation against none other than Garry Kasparov, playing with White. And I think that game ended in a draw. Now, let's have a quick count. What does Black have for the Queen here? He's got a couple of pawns and a couple of minor pieces. So not quite value for the Queen, but Black has a connected pawn chain, and there's a possibility another white pawn might go missing. I don't know. It's a question of taste as to whether you like this or not. What do you feel about this, Nigel? What's your feeling? Not that great, or
the thing is, I'm all for sacrificing material if I don't have to defend. Right? So, this is right up my street, But yeah, I've just tended to do better playing a more technical kind of chess.
I mean, it's not that easy for either colour, but Jonathan makes it look very easy. You'll have to tell us where your preparation ended then, because we're still following Kasparov v Syra, aren't we?
You're assuming I'm going to remember. This game was played 33 years ago or something like that, wasn't it?
I remember it well. Running out into the playground of the school and screaming at the top of my voice.
I think this was still preparation.
Yeah, this is still preparation. Bishop d7. knight h3, probably threatening knight g5
Yeah, I think so.
to kind of puncture some holes in black's king side. And now I played f6.
So basically, black is trying to activate on the queen side and use his extra material over there to develop an initiative. Well, white is dreaming of getting his h-pawn up the board and getting an attack on the king side, but it's difficult to orchestrate. I think the issue for black is that when stuff happens eventually in this game, there's always going to be the white queen on the loose causing trouble. And if nothing happens, it'll be, nothing, both sides will be okay. But when things do happen, the white queen is going to be, in practical terms, difficult to deal with. So that's why I believe white has reasonable practical chances in general terms. On the other hand, black's position...
What is interesting is you managed to actually prove that the black king is quite vulnerable in this position, although it doesn't look it right now. It takes great vision to see that.
White's got two knights and a queen, an h-pawn to throw at it, and potentially both rooks. So there's certainly some material available for white to get an attack.
And black's got two knights on the edge of the board.
Yeah, black's players on the queen side, on the other side of the board. Yeah, it's just a question of feel. I wouldn't trust black's position personally, but it isn't clear. I admit it's not clear. If black can defend, and it's every potential he can, then of course black is okay.
Well, you centralize your knight, getting ready for any action that black might take.
Yeah, that's to defend the queen side and to try and hold things over there, because black is looking to go c6 at some point and wants to have options on that side of the board.
I think that's my only trump, isn't it? The idea of c6, but it doesn't look very good. It tends to activate your pieces rather than black's pieces.
Was knight c8 altogether necessary?
Well, it's a question of what, he has an obvious plan of mounting a kingside attack, doesn't he? And what is my plan?
Well, I just wondered if I was wondering if now knight c5 you probably play, is it b4, but then there's a check.
There's a game in the notes to this. This game was taken from my book First Steps the King's Indian. I made some notes on this, and there was another game where black gave a check to get his bishop outside and then played c6.
No, I meant
slightly different.
Yeah, so after f6, knight f2, I see knight c8 has been played in several games. Rook a d8 has been played in one game, and rook a e8 has been played in one game. Okay, knight c8.
I don't think any of them actually are totally satisfactory for black. I quite like white's position, whatever black does.
I think once black has played knight c8, white is clearly okay. The critical position would be before knight c8, and if black can make use of the pieces where they are, maybe f6, rook f7, and rook a f8 is a plan as well. If you want to go semi-defensive and look to go f5.
Yeah,
there are options, and if you can make use of the pieces where they are, then of course it will be more exciting for black than once you start moving the knight around. It's clear.
I considered that in the game, if I remember correctly. I just thought it was too passive.
Yeah, it's a difficult position to judge, and I don't know. We'd probably need to look at this in the light of a supercomputer analysing it for several hours and see what it came up with. AlphaZero would probably play it rather well.
Well, I would say I was absolutely unaware of how dangerous it could become for the black king, because if eventually the black king gets completely wiped out in this game, which was it took me a bit by surprise how vulnerable the black king was. Anyway, I played c5 just to get the queenside pawns rolling, and then he brought his queen to g3, and then played h4. And now, according to my notes, I thought black should probably take this knight, then play here, and try and tough it out. I'm not sure whether that's very attractive looking at it now, but you've still got to break through, haven't you?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a tough nut to crack, but I would have thought white is definitely trying.
F4 maybe.
So if h5, you're going to go g5, are you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible.
I mean, eventually I'm going to get the queenside pawns rolling, aren't I? B5 is coming at some point. But I mean,
F4 is quite dangerous for both sides at the moment. You've got a weakness on d6. I've got possibly weaknesses with my king on e3.
yeah. Anyway, the point is that the King's Indian player shows his weakness. He doesn't want to give up the dark square bishop.
It's understandable.
What did I do? I went here. Then you played this nice move, A4. A deflection pawn sacrifice to gain time. That was nice.
Looks good if it's good.
Well, if I take this, you're going to go here. And now, well, I probably have to go there. In you come. And then, of course, this is ghastly, isn't it? Bishop will never emerge.
Yeah, it does look good for white, doesn't it? On positional grounds.
Bishop on h8 doesn't look that great, I must admit. What did I do? I took this off so as not to lose time and then gave a check and then played f5.
So you're going for counterplay.
Well, as one does, you know.
Yeah, fair enough.
I find it very discouraging for black that his light square bishop is gone, because the light squares look like they can all fall into white's hands now.
Well, if we just drop back to the point at which he played this excellent move a4.
Yeah, I think.
And if I take it,
well, I think you don't have an alternative.
What's my alternative at this point?
Yeah, I mean, maybe if we go back one move, well, h4, so bishop b5. Yeah, this move is probably a small turning point, because if you, after a4, you don't want to go back, right? And when you take, the position looks just very unpleasant.
Well,
so
then I've got to rely on this.
It may be something. Yeah, I would have thought so.
When you're giving up the other bishop and say to him, how does he get through?
Yeah, it could be that bishop b5 is the point at which a position that's difficult to play becomes one that's actually losing.
I mean, looking at it now, it's very difficult. I mean, it's quite difficult for white to break through, isn't it?
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Especially with some crazy move like f5 on the horizon. You know, black could get chances against white's king.
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't do that. And, you know, that's the way chess is. So now he plays this excellent move here and just buys white the time he needs to get the kingside attack rolling, or I'll give up my bishop, which, as you say, is pretty unattractive. But Jonathan pressed on. Very aggressive move. And I say in the notes, I could see what was coming, but I couldn't see any way to get out of it.
So I'm offering you bishop takes e3 here when I can't take back because of f4 check. So
I played bishop takes e3, and you played this beautiful move h takes g6.
So I must have seen something to justify playing.
You
like
did.
this.
I completely missed your next move. Let's see the variations, because they are really nice. If I take the rook, you take this, and then just play rook g1, and I can't do anything at all.
Yeah.
Which is rather nice. And then if I go knight e7, you go rook takes h7. And again, I am completely stuffed here.
The technical term for it.
Well, yeah, but the next move is absolutely fantastic, because after h6, which I thought was, you know, going to buy me the time I needed, he plays a beautiful move, rook takes h6, which I had completely overlooked.
Yeah, this is not a bad game.
With both the white rooks on pre in a ridiculous fashion.
I think
this was a superb move.
John, actually, I think you mentioned this game to me when we first looked at the idea of you doing a show with us,
I think this game is superior to your game against Al.
And I said, well, you know, we should probably be diplomatic about this. You know, if you smashed Andrew flat.
Why? It's just a great game, you know. And so let's have a look at the lines. If you mentioned this line yourself in the post-mortem, so you must have seen something. Giving up both rooks, but I can't take the rook on h6. Incredibly. So I go here, then you go check, check, mate. You mentioned this line to me. I remember it.
Okay.
So I took the rook like some sort of lemming. Queen h3. Still looks okay, you know. But I think what I missed was after rook h8, you take on f5. Then what can I play? I have no move. Just go back, the switch back, and then you come in here.
Yeah.
Nice, and if I take this, check, king, check, game over. I can't believe how you can't consider this one of your best games, because the depth of the combination is quite something.
Yeah, no, I did consider it one of my best games, looking back on it now.
Anyway, let's carry on, because it's still entertaining. So I went there. In he comes, unfortunately. And then this nice move here. I'm paralysed by your queen. I've got a lot of pieces, but yeah. I went there. You took it. That didn't come as a shock. And as they say, it was time to pack it in.
Yeah, you're not even material ahead really now, are you?
G5, G7's a reasonable.
Yeah, I think so.
So that was, to me, I mean, don't you consider that, when you see it now, don't you consider that to be, it has to be one of your best games?
Yeah, I can't believe I played that well.
Masterpiece of attack, wasn't it?
It was a good game, yeah. I remember being very pleased with that game at the time.
Yeah, for me, this was the move of the game, rook takes h6. I mean, that really is a crushing move. You have to see a long way into the combination to be able to play that. Probably you have to see Queen D7.
It's a nice theme, you know, not saving one rook, but just putting the other one on prees as well. You know.
Yeah.
So whilst I had good results with that line, it really forced me back to the drawing board, and I don't think the line's ever recovered since this game.
I have your book in the other room. I was planning to bring it in at some point. But it might be another day.
Burn the chapter on the table. Burn the chapter.
Well, thank you, Andy, for reminding me of this lovely game. It's very enjoyable. A good hack.
Well, I think it was a really good game. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, it's got a number of nice elements aesthetically, hasn't it? With the paradoxical sacrifices and a4, and yeah, quite a lot of it's all coming together very nicely there. It's a well played game. I think theoretically it's more important than the Howl game, certainly from the opening.
Well, you improved on Kasparov v. Syra.
It's more of a complete game.
That says something.
It's a complete game rather than just a finish. Yes, I guess overall it is a much better game than the Howl game.
Yeah.
And we managed to talk to each other after the game as well, Andrew. So
I think we had a very social post-mortem.
I meant relations didn't break down.
No, that's because I'm not an absolute bastard. Oh well.
Okay, so
I think we've gone on a long time here. We're not going to get to your stuff.
Yeah, we're a bit over an hour. It's always good if we get a few minutes over, because we have to think about our affiliate status. Shall we have a quick look at the problems? I think Andrew thought one was probably a bit too complicated for the show.
That's impossible. Which one do you want to show? You've got one choice of the three problems.
And make it an easy one.
Well, that was all of them.
None of these three are particularly easy. We'll have a quick look at this one because it's very beautiful in a strange way. So this is a study that's almost impossible to solve, I would say. But we'll do so anyway.
Who's going which way?
White is going up the board.
Okay.
It's white to play and win.
It's always really important.
The first few moves are an add-on or a kind of introduction to something that John Nunn discovered on his database. And it's just a way of reaching that position with a few spectacular moves. But okay, so white takes on h7. It's white's trying to win. So for example, if we take on g7, black can just
make that move.
Black can just take on g6, and it should be a draw, equal material. No reason why white should be better there. So that's why we play g takes h7. Obviously, we're threatening to queen, so black's got to stop that. If he plays bishop g, well, he can't move other than knight g6 to stop the queen, really, can he? So he's got to play knight g6, and that happens to be checked from this bishop. So we've got to take that. If we move the king, black can probably just take on f6, and black can only be better. So we take that, that's kind of forced. Black's got to take that back to stop me taking his rook. So rook takes h2, it's fairly forced. We take on g7, threatening to queen. Black's got to take that one so that he can meet queens with that.
The game's just starting.
And we've played the introduction, so we take that, take that. And now the rest of this game is nothing really to do with humans. It's all to do with a computer analysis, a database analysis. This was a discovery by Jon Nunn shortly before I composed this study. White to play and win here. Only one move does win, and it's the beautiful, restrained a3. It's almost impossible to explain why that move wins other than in general terms, which is that after natural moves, we reach a mutual zugzwang, which is why you wanted to lose a tempo. So in this position, with black to play, black is lost, but with white to play, it's only a draw. This is again database analysis. So for example, he does that. We go here. And if knight c7, a7, black can try that. And we don't take it, after which black plays king c7 and can never be shifted from c8 and c7 because, so for example, if we take, this is a draw very clearly because after check, whenever white moves, he's going to move, he can't move the king or the pawn. Whenever he moves the knight, it's going to be to a black square, in which case black will be able to go to this black square, because from a black square, white will only control white squares. And the same argument keeps showing that there's nothing white can do to stop black alternating between c7 and c8 here, whatever you do with the knight. So that's a draw. But going back to this position, we don't take the knight immediately, we play that move.
Really nice.
Which forces black to kind of lose his knight that way, and we queen the pawn.
Mm.
Nice.
It's
a bit too complicated for me. But
so if we go back to a4, let's just show that line. If he goes a4, mistake.
Okay, so then we'll just play the normal moves. And this time it's white to play rather than black to play here. And so, for example, if here, I guess you can go check. And check, maybe.
Frustrating.
I don't think white can win. I mean, as I say, the computer approves this. It's not in question. So what Jon Nunn did was brilliant. He kind of went through the computer analysis, finding all the mutual zugzwangs, and to his pleasant surprise, he found that this was one of them, and this was probably the hardest to understand. And it's just a really beautiful position that only a3 wins this position. I think that's a work of art. I don't know who's responsible for this work of art. Obviously, John Nunn kind of discovered it from the database. So he kind of found the diamond, if you like, that was there, but he didn't actually compose it. The computer did, in a sense. But John Nunn found it.
And you tacked the previous moves on top of it?
Yeah, just a little bit of fun.
Working backwards from this position, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. So, oops. Oh, we have to go back to the start, don't we? So, yeah, going back one move.
There we are.
Yeah, so I think for a human to solve this problem, you've got to first calculate a little bit of tactics at the start of some sort of powerful moves, aggressive taking and hacking and queen threats and chopping stuff. And then you've got to find the incredibly restrained A3 after that sequence. I don't think many people could solve that study unaided by the computer. It would be almost impossible to find that sequence of moves, in particular A3. So I just kind of presented it. It's kind of beautiful in a strange way that sequence of moves wins the game, and no other sequence of moves is possible to win for white.
Do you still work on compositions and chess problems, or you know?
I spend very little time on chess now. I do play a little bit of Blitz online, and I do look at positions and problems and studies on Facebook typically. So I do spend a little time. Obviously, the book Secrets of Spectacular Chess was all about the aesthetics of chess. And in that book, David Friedgood's theory about depth, paradox, geometry and flow was partly my theory as well, that I added the flow element to his three-part theory, which had geometry, depth and paradox. That book presents a theory which looks at aesthetics in terms of those four elements. So this is for the game and for studies and problems as well. Paradox being, surprise, geometry being all sorts of ideas that strike the eye, patterns on the eye, and flow being a kind of, so in this study, there's a kind of passage at arms at the start, which gives it a certain flow, dynamic flow. But the flow is to do with the movement of a whole sequence of moves. And depth is where the depth move in this study is clearly in this position to play A3 rather than A4. A4 is far more natural. And you don't understand A3 until you see the point of it many moves later, which is that this position is mutual zugzwang. Only after you understand that can you appreciate why A3 was played. And that makes A3 a very deep move. And that's got a certain beauty. So those four elements are what we think captures almost all aesthetics in chess. And that book, Secrets of Spectacular Chess, puts forward that theory and has loads of examples of beautiful games, beautiful problems, beautiful studies. So I've kind of kept an interest. I think chess endgame studies, despite what Nigel thinks of them, are perhaps one of the highest art forms around to those that can appreciate.
I just find them a bit hard.
Yeah, some of them are just pretty and not too hard. Some of them are hard and pretty. Some of them are just hard and not particularly pretty. So you've got to be selective about what you enjoy. But a really beautiful endgame study is a fine piece of art, and it's just very deep and very lovely, and it's something that chess players should and can appreciate. And I don't know. It's part of the motivation to play chess. If it was always boring, dull, technical games where you grind away against an isolated queen pawn or something, it wouldn't be quite the same as if you have games like with spectacular finishes and queen sacrifices and whatever. The aesthetic component is very much something that has made chess what it is, and something that appeals to the human mind.
I have one final question. Do you see any situation at all in which you might return to actually playing chess?
Um, I have some issues with my health, as you probably know. I suffer from a arthritic condition called scleroderma, which is a hardening of connective tissue and skin. It's affected my lungs, so I have perhaps 50% of the capacity that I had, say, 5 years ago, or before I got this condition 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, in fact, now. So I have reduced energy, essentially. I can walk for about an hour before I get tired out. So I'm not totally unfit, but I don't have the energy to play a long chess tournament, really.
Yeah.
I could play, but I'd run out of steam. I can certainly play one game, maybe a couple of games, but then I'd get tired. So I'm never going to play as well as I did at my peak because I just don't have the energy, quite apart from the fact I haven't worked on my game and haven't studied. I mean, that could be corrected if I really wanted to study and work on chess. I could probably get my tactical imagination going again. I could probably soup up on a bit of opening theory again if I was motivated to do it. But with the lack of energy, I don't really see that it's likely. I don't see that I'm going to become a strong player again. I mean, I probably reached about 2,500 odd, and I doubt if I'm, in practical terms, even 2,400 now. So I'd always have to accept that I'm playing below the level that I was. And I'm prepared to do that. I mean, I played a holiday tournament in Italy in, I think, 2008 or 9. I enjoyed that. But I probably wouldn't play just for the sake of playing chess anymore, because I'm just not. I was, it was the center of my life. I was geared up to play chess. And then I moved away from that. I started becoming more of a teacher and writer. And then I got this medical condition, and then I've changed career completely. I don't even do chess teaching. I haven't for the last 2 decades almost. I've been very dedicated to a different skill entirely, which is to do with betting on cricket. And I've kind of honed that skill and become pretty good at it. And I make a good living from that. And I enjoy the aesthetics of chess still. I enjoy a little bit of competitive play, blitz, but I think it's unlikely I'm going to play tournaments. Well, obviously there's the COVID issue at the moment, but ignoring that, even if that wasn't the case, it's unlikely I'd play much, but I might play the odd tournament. It's possible I'll play somewhere at some point, health and life allowing. I still enjoy chess. I find it a challenge to play. I'm absolutely rubbish at blitz chess online. I keep losing on time.
Join the club.
It's a really difficult game to play well as you get older, but some people manage. I mean, Keith Arkell's doing well. Nigel Short's still able to win tournaments. He's getting on a bit too. And Nigel, you're still pretty strong, and I imagine Andy probably is too. I don't know when you last played, but I think you guys I think it's a lot to do with physical fitness. If you can keep yourself fit, and I know you both are fitter than average people for your age, I think that makes a big difference. I'm not in a position where I can be fit, even if I did a tough exercise regime. My underlying condition rather, is such that the best I'm going to achieve is kind of slightly poor health, as opposed to very poor health. And I do keep myself as fit as I can. Buffy's rather keen to go out the door now, so I think I should let her.
Okay.
Well,
it's been a real pleasure. It's very interesting, slightly more intellectual than we're used to, although we would do if left to our own devices. But thanks very much, Jon. I really enjoyed talking to you today.
Likewise, it's lovely catching up with you too. And my final words are goodbye and have fun.
Thank you, Jon.
Bye.
Take care.
See you soon.
Bye.
Very much.
Bye.
Bye.